Determine the largest angle of a triangle whose sides are given. Let us begin. Now in this problem, we have a triangle whose sides are given as A, B and C. So let's say we consider a triangle with sides. Let's call this as a triangle A, B, C. The sides opposite to angle A, that's going to be denoted by in lowercase. Sides opposite to angle B, that is going to be denoted by B in lowercase, and the remaining side is going to be denoted by C in lowercase. So here we now have the triangle ABC whose sides are known. Okay, now since our goal is to find out the largest angle of the triangle, so that means largest angle means we have to first confirm which one of the side A, B and C are greater of the three. Okay, to do that, we know that in our triangle, since the sides are A, B and C, is clearly the sides must be always greater than 0. That has to be true. A must be greater than 0, B must be greater than 0, and C must be greater than 0. That means all the sides must be positive. That's a requirement. We know that. Let's start with A. So A here is given as x squared plus x plus 1. Okay. Now x squared plus x plus 1, we can also express it as x squared added to. So what we'll do, we're going to complete the square. So the middle term, which is x, can be also expressed as 2 times x multiplied to 1/2. Now we are writing in this fashion because this half, all we have to do is take this half, we square this value. Now this is an extra term that we are adding, so we have to subtract it. So we have negative half squared as well, added to 1. Now what we have, the first three terms, that is going to be a perfect square. We get x plus 1/2 whole square. Then we have negative half square added to 1, and that means we now have a 1 minus 1 over 4, or we can say this is simply 3 over 4. Now we know 3 over 4 is a positive number. Squaring any quantity, that's always going to make it a positive number, which means that this value is always going to be greater than 0 for any values of x. For all values of x, that means any value of x that we choose, this is always going to be a positive number. It does not matter if whether x is positive or negative in this case here. Okay, now coming to the second case where we have b a greater than 0. Now what is b here? B is given by 2x plus 1, that is greater than 0. Now this is an inequality. When we solve this inequality, we're getting the condition here that x has to be greater than negative 1/2. Okay. So that means we only have to pick up those values which are greater than negative half. Any number that we pick up less than negative half, then the side B is going to become negative. So that is not possible. Our side always has to be positive. We don't have to worry about x here. So x could, as we already mentioned, that this is true. This is always going to be greater than 0 for all values of x. So regardless of the sign of x, this is going to be positive. So here we don't have to worry too much about A, but when we talk about B, we have to be very specific here. We only can consider values of x that are greater than negative 1/2. Okay, fine. Now let's also look at number C. So the side C is given by x squared minus 1. So we want C to be greater than 0, which means that x squared minus 1 must be greater than 0. Let's solve this inequality. So we have x squared minus 1. When you factorize it, it is simply the product of x minus 1 and x plus 1. So that is greater than 0. Here is that the product of two function product is greater than 0. So this is going to give us two conditions. So either both of them are positive, x minus 1 is greater than 0, and x plus 1 is also greater than 0. Only then product of two positive number is going to be greater than 0. Or we get the other possibility where both of them are negative. So x minus 1 is less than 0 and x plus 1 is also less than 0. Okay, now x minus 1 greater than 0 means x has to be greater than 1 and x has to be greater than negative 1. Now when we combine this simply means that x is greater than 1 and x is also greater than negative 1, simply means that x has to be actually greater than 1. That is the combined solution of this case. Or we get the other case where x is less than 1 and x is less than negative 1. Now if x is less than negative 1 and x is less than 1, we can combine these two solutions to get a combined solution of x less than negative 1. We can always take the help of the number line. So let's look at it. So here using a number line, so here we have 0, we have positive 1 and we have negative 1. So x greater than 1 means we're considering all the values to the right of 1. And x greater than negative 1, that means we're considering all the numbers to the right of negative 1. So this is the common intersection. So hence combining it, we are saying x is less than 1. This is going to be similarly true for the other case. So here we have the number line, we have 0, we have positive 1 and we have negative 1. So x less than 1 means we're not including 1 here. We're going to take all the values of x that are lying to the left of 1. And x less than -1 means we have to consider all the values of x that are lying to the left of x equals to -1. And this is the common region. So this common region means we have x less than -1. But we cannot consider this case. This cannot be true. X cannot be less than -1 because we have already established that x is going to be greater than -1. So we cannot consider this case that x is less than -1. So here we will say that x cannot be less than -1. Only possibility is that x has to be greater than 1. So for the case c greater than 0, so we're getting that for c to be greater than 0, it must be true that x has to be greater than 1. Okay, so let's try to understand everything. So clearly we started out by first considering a. A was positive for any values of x, so we didn't have to worry about it. Coming to b, b is going to be positive only when we consider x greater than -1. And for c, c is going to be greater than 0 only when we consider the fact that x is greater than 1. So that means if we take any value of x which is less than 1, then c is going to be invalid. So here, if c is invalid, although b is valid, because let's say, to think about it, we are taking x greater than -1. So maybe let's say we take x equals to 0. 0 is a value which is greater than -1. Now if we take x equals to 0, we substitute it here, we get 2 times 0 plus 1, so that gives us 1. 1 is simply greater than 0. That's a true statement. But if we put x equals to 0 in a second statement, x squared minus 1 equals to 0. So x equals to 0 means we have -1 greater than 0, which is untrue. So this is coming out to be untrue because here we are not taking care of the fact that x has greater than 1. So if we take x greater than 1, let's take x equals to 2, then b is going to be satisfied, c is also going to be satisfied. A, we don't have to worry about it because a is always satisfied. So our condition must be that x must be always greater than 1. Okay, fine. So here we have established the fact that x must be greater than 1. Okay, so let's now try to figure out which one is the greatest side. So we have a. So a, let's note down the value. First, what we'll do, we're going to find out a minus b. So a minus b means we have x squared plus x plus 1. And from here, we are subtracting 2x plus 1. Okay, so we get x squared. So x minus 2x, that's negative x. 1 gets cancelled out. So here we have x multiplied to x minus 1. So we will use the condition that is x is always greater than 1. So whatever be the value of x, it has to be greater than 1. So when we take x greater than 1, is this a positive number? Yes. This is always going to be positive whenever x is greater than 1. Okay. Next, let's do a minus c. So here we have x squared plus x plus 1. And from here, we are subtracting c, which is x squared minus 1. So that is going to give us x plus 2. Now since we have already considered x is greater than 1, so that means this is always going to be a positive number for all values of x greater than 1. You can check this out by taking a value of x which is greater than 1. Let's take 1.5. So if we substitute 1.5 in place of x, 1.5 added to 2 is 3.5, which is a positive number greater than 0. This means that since we are getting a minus b is a positive number, a minus c is also a positive number, that means a must be the greatest side. This only confirms that side a, we are saying here that side a, which is given by x squared plus x plus 1, this is the greatest side. So we have now verified which one is the greatest side. Okay, now that we know that a is the greatest side, so that means that angle a must be the greatest angle. This must be the greatest angle. So our goal here will be to determine the angle measure of a. Okay, to find out angle measure of a, we are going to use the law of cosine. So here let's use the law of cosine. The law of cosine. So the law of cosine simply states that if we take cosine of the angle a, that is going to be equals to, so let's rewrite our triangle here. We have a, we have b, we have c. A, b, c are the sides. So the sides, we have to consider the sides that are adjacent to angle a. So those are b and c. We're going to take the squares of their sum. So we're b squared plus c squared. And from here subtract the square of the side that is opposite to angle a, which is simply a. So we get a squared divided by 2 times the product of the adjacent sides b and c. Okay, now let's substitute the value. So b was given by 2x plus 1. We're going to square this. Add it to c squared, so that was x squared minus 1. Square this value, and from here subtract a squared. So a is simply x squared plus x plus 1 whole square divided by divided by 2 times the product of b and c. What is b here? B here is 2x plus 1 multiplied to c, so that is x squared minus 1. Now this is a simple algebra, so we can expand it, and after simplification this is going to leave us with negative 1/2. So cosine of a comes out to be negative 1/2. Now we know when is cosine when do we get negative 1/2? Whenever we have cosine of 120 degrees, so that corresponds to negative 1/2. So we have obtained the value of a, so a comes out to be 120 degrees. So this is going to be the angle measure of the greatest angle, which is 120 degrees. The angle measure of the greatest angle, that is going to be equals to 120 degrees. Okay,